Most salespeople suck at their job because they don't get any coaching. But now you can hear what the top performers are saying in the home. You have to look at the tool as coaching. Luckily, he was in the pilot group when this company was trialing Xero. And they found there's a silly little sentence he adds in during his close, and it sends his same day books through the roof.
Are you going to leave me hanging? You're not going to tell us what that line is?
Wilson just wrapped up the year in the low 20s, and we were pumped. I mean, most of the industry did not have that same level of success. And when I think about who was a huge partner for us, like top of the list was ServiceScalers. We've been working with ServiceScalers for a couple years now, and they've helped us drive best-in-class SEO, best-in-class PPC, and dominate LSA and GMB marketing. They've been a huge partner for us, and we're really grateful for that partnership because it's helped us to take down 46% year-over-year growth. As we think about our budget next year, we're aiming for the low 30s, and one of our most strategic partners is going to be ServiceScalers. They're going to help get us there. They're going to help us stay ahead of AI. They're going to help us keep our SEO relevant. They're going to help keep us on the top exactly where we want to be. So make sure you check out servicescalers.com. Sam and his team over there is just a bunch of killers. So thank you, ServiceScalers, for your partnership.
Welcome back to Owned and Operated. Today we have Jake in the house. What's going on, Jake?
Howdy. Happy to be here.
Jake is in Park City right now, and I'm extremely jealous. We talked offline about he's out there doing. Are you a skier or a snowboarder?
I'm a snowboarder for now. Yeah.
Ooh, just, you get a little older and then the bones start to hurt when you fall, and everyone goes skiing for a reason. There's a bunch of old men skiing and not too many of them snowboarding.
Oh yeah. I think maybe this is my last year, and then we'll make the transition.
You'll give it a try. Yeah. So Jake, you're part of Xero. How do you say that?
Xero. It's like Siri, but with an O.
Xero, tell us about Xero and give us just a really high level feel for what Xero is and what you guys are doing in kind of the home service space and even broader in the customer facing space.
Yeah. So for the longest time, your customer support calls have been recorded. This call is being recorded for quality and training purposes.
Right.
And your Zoom calls too. Like whenever you're buying software, the vendor's probably on a Zoom call, and there's probably some note taker there recording it so that people can train, reflect, remember what they said, as a note taker, or the many applications. We are bringing that to the in-person world. So the face-to-face conversations. Well, it's a massive paradigm shift right now where this data, recordings of your in-person conversations, have never been available before. Mm-hmm. And now technology has just recently gotten good enough to do that. There's a bunch of technical reasons for why recording in person is really, really hard, from the obvious ones like battery life up to and internet connectivity, to the processing of the audio is much harder. And there's a slew of other technical challenges. So it's just become possible to get these conversations digitized, which unlocks a ton of use cases of what you can do. And the one that we're focusing on is sales coaching and training for now. And then there's a bunch of other, we'll say, use cases that get unlocked when you have this treasure trove of data. And then the second exciting paradigm shift, which I'll just tack it on as well. So one is this mountain of data is finally being captured. And the second is, everyone's heard of AI, ChatGPT, Anthropic, all of this, the LLMs, DeepSeek, this crazy new wave of AI that's really just happened like over the last year and a half, 2 years, which makes computers really, really good at synthesizing massive piece of information. So like you have a whole book, you can summarize it down, take numbers out of it, and start making meaning out of mountains of data. So those two paradigm shifts coming together, the availability of this data plus this new technology that's really good at processing long, unstructured conversations, is completely transforming the way that you currently coach an in-person team, contractors, sales reps, and then increasingly the way you make strategic decisions for your business.
Yeah, I'm personally super excited about it. It's huge, and it's crazy to be able to now have that data at our fingertips and then be able to actually do something with it. Because I'm a huge data nerd, and I feel like I always have all this data, and it just sits in my head. I'm like, I know that I have this data, but I just don't know what to do with it. And now we have the ability to just almost query, right? Say, hey, what's going on with this? Why am I not doing that? And then having answers back of, something, the AI program going through all that data and then summarizing for you in like seconds versus me trying to go through spreadsheets and like create this and be able to drive that. It's absolutely incredible. And so tell me a little bit about your background first, your background and Cyro's background on what is your background in, and then how did you get to Cyro and where was it at? And because this AI technology is new, right? Newish. Over the last year and a half, we've seen the kind of shift. So let's work on that first.
Yeah. Oh boy. If I rewind all the way back to when I was 18, graduated.
When I was born. No, I'm just kidding. Like college moving on, or if there's anything big.
The inciting incident was really when I was 18. So I'm gonna do like,
okay,
kick it off there. And the reason is that's when I was selling Cutco knives. Have you ever heard of Cutco?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So I did that. It was honestly life-changing for me. I'm from Hershey, Pennsylvania. Everyone's working a minimum wage at Hershey Park. And it's not that fun to do that. It's hot. I'm not making much money. I wanted a bit more flexibility. I got this letter in the mail saying you can make $15 per qualified appointment. I was like, I don't know what that means, but it's more than like $7 an hour. So I was selling knives, and I ended up making more money per month that summer selling knives than I later made at McKinsey as a business analyst. And McKinsey, that's the number one consulting firm in the world.
Yeah.
And you rewind back, I was 18, no college degree, like barely had a high school degree, and was just crushing it. What that did for me is it showed me that you don't need to be a doctor, a lawyer, a banker to make a great income. There are so many other ways to live your life, so many other professions, and especially so many that allow you to bet on yourself and have like complete control over your life versus a lot of these other careers are more of like, golden handcuffs where you get good income, but your lifestyle is very locked into a rigid routine. So that was the inciting incident. Learned about field sales. In college, however, I studied computer science, engineering, built a bunch of apps. The first app that I built was to help Cutco. So I built, think of it as like a really simple CRM for knife sellers. It was an app to track your calling.
So let me ask you real quick right there. Was that meaningful, or was that on purpose? Because I mean, like that's the best mix. It's like, hey, you have a person who understands sales and tech or sales, and then you have somebody who also understands tech. It's like the ultimate, right? I wish someone would have pushed me in that direction. But like, was that on purpose, or did
very fortunate?
It was just fortune.
That's so fortunate. I wanted to be a mechanical engineer. This is actually one more layer of the story that I don't usually tell. I actually thought when I was going into school that I was too old to be a software engineer. I thought that every software engineer was already like building apps by the age 10, and I was like, shoot, I missed the boat. But I was studying abroad in China, and I was in an immersion program where you aren't allowed to speak a single word of English outside of the 1 hour a week like meeting. Otherwise you get sent home. And this was a government sponsored program. Like they weren't messing around. And my Chinese was so bad that I had no friends. And so every hour outside of class, I was just sitting in a coffee shop and I was like, screw it, I guess I'm going to learn to code just because it's fun. And that's how I started building this app for Cutco. And then that was a domino effect, which eventually led to founding Xero. And then maybe there's one more plot point that I'll add in, like just before founding Xero was, I liked building apps. I was working in consulting, however, at McKinsey doing all sorts of stuff. I just wanted to see more of the world. I wanted to understand what are the most interesting problems actively being worked on in the world. So I was working in oil and gas. I was working in utilities. I was working in big tech. I was doing projects on like, mergers and acquisitions. I was working on some strategy over here. I was doing tech implementation, tons of stuff. And for in all the different clients I was serving, projects we were working on, none of them seemed more impactful than the kind of stuff that I was doing with my little Cutco app. It's like no problem seemed more overlooked than the problems that I saw firsthand at Cutco, which are, Cutco's a very unique company, but the problems they face are the same ones that everyone in the field sales and services world face. I don't know what's going on in the field. You get very messy data because you're sort of entering in the field. Connection is bad, and the software is generally not the same par as what you get in the inside sales world.
Data in to data out too, right? You only get good data in if your sales techs are putting good data in.
Yeah.
So, and that they're directly incentivized by making sure that their data is in a format that is beneficial to them, right? So that's very interesting. Okay. And so then rolling into what, 2016, you guys started up?
And it was really 2020, summer of 2020.
Okay, 2020.
Yeah, and that was like 2 years into consulting. I was like, you know what? It was kind of funny that little side app I was building in college. It started making a little bit of money, and it gave me just enough confidence to quit my job and go full time and solve the biggest problem I could find in the field sales world. So I knew there were big problems to be solved. I knew the world was big and it was generally underserved by technology. There's just not enough companies, not enough engineers working to help build stuff for the field sales world. So I spent a while looking around, like 6 months exploring different ideas. Maybe I'll build a CRM. Maybe if it's a gamification tool, maybe we need better data enrichment. And then finally landed on built a Figma design, like a little, just a mock-up of an idea to record conversations to make the feedback loop faster between a manager and their field sales team. And that hit the first client. It was actually this company called Aptiv Environmental. Connor Ruggio took my cold LinkedIn message and said, you know what, we'll do it. And then so they signed up. We built the product in like the MVP in like 3 months, and then everything kicked off from there. And then really the problem that we were trying to solve was that most salespeople suck at their job because they don't get any coaching. I sucked. Luckily, I was like, my manager invested so much into me to get me better. And it was mostly me just banging my head against the wall until I got it right. There's not really a great system for getting better, mastering your craft of field sales.
Yeah, it almost feels sometimes like sales is, I know it's not, but it feels like it's an art, right? It's a mix of kind of psychology and pricing. And like, there's just so many aspects to it that the ability to be able to coach actively is so important. And so walk me through this first position, right? Or this first sale. What did this company do? Because I mean, what I want to understand is I always find the transition from, we found it kind of through these interviews is that there's a lot of companies who are moving into the home service space, but they didn't originally start in the home service space. They started in healthcare, recording calls for, or recording the doctor talking to patients to do automated X, Y, or Z. And then at some point they figured out, hey, the home service industry is blowing up. Let's move into there. Like, what was your golden moment where you saw home services and you said, this is it.
This is it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Aptiv they were a pest control company.
Okay. It's the first one. Yeah. No, that's awesome, man.
Yeah. So we started out, we were doing pest control, solar, roofing, and then that pivoted us into home improvement, which then pivoted us into home services. So we sort of got the more recognition that we got, the people who most needed the software started to hear about us and kind of pull us in. I wish we hit home services day one, but it took us quite a while to figure out that was where there's so much need in application. Serial can like completely change your some people call it standardization, other people just call it just performance and the service of your field sales team. So it took a little while, like 3 years. If I put a number on it, 3 years for us to find our way into home services, and then it was like instant. Like, this is perfect.
Instant adoption. Yeah, this is where we go.
Yeah,
very cool. And so, looking at your background and looking to where you are today, kind of, do you feel that Cutco mixed with the China, mixed with learning how to program, got you to this point in time? Or do you feel like you would have found this some other way?
That's hard to say. I think I needed the mixture. I think that brought me there. Maybe the biggest one was the Cutco stuff. It's as an entrepreneur, you face rejection and uncertainty all the time. And at least this is how I've felt building a company. I'm constantly underqualified for my role, constantly. The same way that you graduate, you graduate training at Cutco, and it's like, I'm now supposed to go talk to a real customer. Like, okay, let's just give it a shot. So you get this kind of blind confidence and ability to face rejection that I think is critical to just keep going and learning. And that's probably what I think is the most important as friends want to start companies and they're asking for advice, they're kicking things off. It's just like, you've got to commit to at least time, like pick a number, 6 months, a year, like how long do you want to do this? And you've got to stay locked in the whole time. No excuses, no giving up. You just got to keep going. And I think that's what Cutco, a little bit of China stuff, learning Chinese was freaking hard. I think these kinds of like hard things that you do, I think help train you. Some people do physical challenges. There's all sorts of different challenges I think train you for starting a company, which is maybe it's akin to an endurance sport in that way. Like you just got to keep going.
Yeah, I always say that owners are a bit masochistic in the sense that like you just have to like some of the pain because it's a lot of pain. The highs are extremely high. I mean, you're winning, it feels so good. But when you're losing, it's a rough day. I mean,
lonely,
it is
painful, everything sucks. It's like I'm terrible as a person. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay. Very cool. So you guys in 2020 started Ciro. You started Ciro. You got your first sale. It's doing it. It's moving. Were you guys, or are you guys to this day? When we can, I don't know how much you want to talk about this, but are you guys bootstrapped? Like what does that look like? Because I know a lot of tech companies that go out and they raise just a monster seed round or something, $10 million on a back of a napkin. Yeah. What does that look like for you guys? Are you 50% owner or whatever?
Yeah. At this point, we're VC backed. We're kind of like the classic VC trajectory, but it did not start out like that. That was only about a year and a half ago that we started getting VC money, and we're about 4.5 years in. So the first 3 years was just no salary, like burning through savings, living at home. Just me and my co-founder just grinding. It was hard. And then you face this question as an entrepreneur, like, do you take VC money or not? And it's like a big decision. And I think the decision, like the decision criteria in that fork in the road is how important is the speed? Because you definitely lose a ton of ownership. There's all this baggage when you raise VC money. Yeah. These like high demands, like the path to like personally making money as a founder when you're taking VC money, like the bar is just way higher. You got to earn at least all the money that you've raised before you make anything, all that kind of stuff. And in our space, we saw that the paradigm shift was so clear. Not only can we finally record these in-person conversations, but also with large language models, the AI advancements, there's just too much to do. And if we bootstrap, it's going to take us 10 years to build like a decent tool. If we get VC money, we can hire a dozen engineers now, and we can build what the industry needs like today. So it was for us, it was the urgency that we just can't wait to build this tech. People want it now. And that's why we raised money. So now we raised a seed round and a Series A round in the summer of 2023. Like in 4 months, it was kind of like back to back, and we've raised about $25 million to date now, which has been, it's good. We're very privileged to have awesome investors, this ecosystem that's willing to take a big bet on companies like us, so that we can invest upfront and spend all this money to build software to start getting in people's hands now. Versus if you bootstrap, the software just moves way slower. So
yeah, it's definitely dry powder to get you moving quickly. And so with that, what can you talk about? What were some of the big, like, what did you, I'm always curious, what did you use that money for, right? Because 25 million for all of us just to show up in your pocket after I'm saying like after a day, but I understand like it's a 4-year process. You had to build the MVP and you had to get there. But at some point you did have a large chunk of capital come into the bank account, and then you had to deploy it. And so when you were looking at like that deployment of funds, like where were you thinking about putting that, and where did you see the most value looking back? Summer of 23, so a year and a half. Where did you see the most value with where you put that money?
Yeah, and me and my co-founder were both incredibly frugal people. Don't even take the subway because it's too expensive. Kind of like incredibly frugal, and when we needed to because we had no money. And then suddenly, we were making our revenue was like quite good by the time we got to the seed and the Series A. That's where we were able to raise them pretty quickly. But suddenly, your entire mindset needs to shift, because you have all of this money and you don't have that money just to sit on it. Like the whole plan is you only raise money if you are ready to aggressively spend it and strategically spend it. So it's an important question you just asked. Luckily in software, it's not too you're pretty much going to put it on people. Like you're not going to be buying a big office. You don't have to buy big hardware. You don't have to buy trucks and machines. For us, we're building software. We just need to hire the people. But then there is the question of, okay, how much are you hiring engineers? How many salespeople you're hiring? How many customer support? You sort of have to build up like a healthy business, so you don't get too lopsided, like a massive sales team, but only 2 engineers, so you can't keep up, things like that. Luckily, one of our investors, Index Ventures, has some really really robust data around team composition as companies grow. So they published this book called Scaling Through Chaos, which is awesome for anyone who's building a software company. That basically says like, hey, here's usually the composition of a team by the time you're at 10 people, 50 people, 100 people. Okay. It's like, okay, we should probably be about 50% engineers right now, about X% salespeople. So it gives you some guidance. Mm-hmm. So you get some of that top-down guidelines, and then also bottoms up, like you're just in the trenches every day, and it's like, man, we need another engineer bad. Okay, so we're going to hire another engineer. Oh man, we need customer success because we are getting pummeled by phone calls. Okay, let's hire someone in. So that I didn't find it particularly hard. Hiring, however, is hard. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
Hiring is so difficult.
Yes, I'm sure everyone listening to this podcast is going, yes, we all agree. I mean, home services hiring is an absolute nightmare. I mean, for every 5 contractors that retire, it's something like 1.8 or something is actually getting into the business.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, that's amazing. That really is. I'm always I spent about 10 years in the North Bay, above San Francisco. And so I always was surrounded by this VC funds and all that kind of stuff. And it's always such an interesting topic to me just because I never did it, but always got to see it from up close and personal. So really neat to hear that story. And so now you're running Cyro and you're getting all this data, you're helping out, home service businesses and frontline, to understand what's actually happening in the field and give them coaching on kind of how they're doing their sales pitches and trainings. I mean, I view you kind of, right, you get to see this data that, once again, I'm a data nerd. You get to see this data that I never get to see. What are have you had any big takeaways? So for example, we were talking with Avoca, they do something similar over the phones, and then you give your CSRs, the same kind of coaching. And he was talking about how the best over the phone sales happened at like 158 words per minute or something like that. But just like these really cool metrics that I never get to actually like quantify. Mm-hmm. Is there anything that you have seen that you were just like, man, this is a super cool metric? If you're a salesperson out there trying to sell anything, you got to look at this.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff. And just to underscore your point, we had this one company the other day who they're a solid performing company, but they have one stud who's crushing it, especially the same day sale. And then they just don't know what's going on. Like the rest of the team can't replicate it. Mm-hmm. So they looked at a few of his conversations and they found there's one specific silly little sentence he adds in during his close, and it sends his same day books through the roof. So they're like, okay, great. Let's just try out having everyone on the team say this. Like everyone, you just have to say this line during the close. And in 1 week, their close rate or their same day book rate went up 17%. And it's just amazing. Like sometimes it's like the boiling point.
Wait, are you going to leave me hanging? You're not going to tell us what that line is? Is it? It's trade secret for them. I mean, yeah. I wouldn't blame you.
It is that being a company that has all this sensitive data, we do have to be very
fair enough
with trade secrets. But every company has these things where it's like, I think of the boiling point. It's like you go from water and then you heat up 1 more degree and now you're boiling. Now you're vapor. Sometimes it's one small tweak to a closing line, and you have a massive step change in your close rate. So you got to identify those types of things.
Yeah, it's really cool because I mean, I read a lot of sales books back from the gurus throughout the 70s and 80s, and they talk about, well, if you use this word versus this word, you don't use the word problems with men, you don't use the word this with women, and that it'll increase your sales percentages. It's actually interesting that we get to see that in real time and see these kind of psychological tricks, if you call them, but these really, I don't even want to call them tricks, but like these buzzwords that actually drive real sales. I mean, are there any other huge success stories like that you could share, or at least give us the 32,000 foot view on? Because I mean, I love this. This is cool.
I'll riff on a couple of things. So one takeaway is just as a business owner, like some people some of our companies are more like laissez-faire and some are very process oriented. But even the people with really strict processes, almost militant, they'll implement a process and then they'll see, and when they start tracking it through Xero, they'll realize that people are not following the process. Like people are not. It's like, okay, of course you go in. It's like, hey, is my part job okay? It's like, wait a minute. Why aren't you asking if your part job's okay? You realize half your team is not asking that. It's like, that's just, if that's that, you can't ask that basic step. What other parts of the process are you not following? So following the process is one of the takeaways that every customer will universally have once they get on Xero is that people are just not following the process the way you thought, which makes sense because no one's ever been able to hold people accountable. And if you're in the home, you might just forget people innocently. Forgot to ask that. I was distracted. But there's no feedback loop to tell you, hey, you forgot this step. You forgot to ask for a Google review at the end. Like you got to do that. So that's one cool piece. There's one other little anecdote. This is less data oriented, but this is my favorite type of story because it's about an individual. Like this type of tech, this recording and AI tech, like Xero is it's transformative for business owners, but it's also transformative for the individuals who are on the front line. And that's ultimately why we founded Xero. Our mission is to make field sales the most accessible path to financial freedom. So my favorite stories come down to the individuals. There's this one dude who was working at this is a home improvement company, so not quite home services, but he'd gone 3 months without closing a sale, like 3 months of eating these expensive leads and not closing a sale, just donut after donut after donut. And luckily, he was on the verge of getting fired. Luckily, he was in the pilot group when this company was trialing Xero. So he was one of the 50% of his office was on Xero, 50% off. And so he was in the pilot group. He was trying it out. And within 1 week, he started listening to his peers, just hearing how they sounded in the field. And he closed his first deal. Kept doing that. Kept just listening to what other people sound like. You hear these things.
I'm rooting for him. That's awesome.
You hear it's like, hey, you got to like use this line. You bring people in for a team meeting. You talk about what good service looks like, lines to use. But it's like, that's not how it really works in the home. But now you can hear what the top performers are saying in the home through the recording of the conversation. And this dude, after 2 months, worked his way up to number 1 on the company leaderboard. Just like a crazy turnaround story. And that transforms his financial. Those are my favorite stories.
That's absolutely transformative. That's amazing. And so you did touch on an interesting point that I did want to ask you about. And that was, right, you have either technicians or you have salespeople that are going into homes. But this is also an accountability software, right? The kind of goal of the software is for coaching, but it is adding an accountability that has never been in the field outside of ride-alongs, right?
Yeah.
How difficult has it been to get buy-in from the team to implement it? Because right now you kind of have Big Brother sitting watching, and if you're not necessarily a sales position, I mean, how has implementation been successful for you when kind of running into those, kind of those harder, I don't want to say harder use cases, but like more use cases. Yeah. You see where I'm going.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The Big Brother question, without a doubt, comes up every single time people hear about this topic for the first time. It's like, okay, like this is cool, but like this, it sounds like this is something you would use to police your field team. They're not going to be happy about that. And it's like, well, it's like anyone who's a good people manager will know that if you are micromanaging your team, they're not going to be happy. You're going to lose your team. It's like the good management principles still apply. You have to look at the tool as a coaching tool. One way that you can use it, the way you're not supposed to use the tool, is you look at
that's always a good way to start.
The not recommended approach is you look at the recordings and you're just waiting to like breathing over someone's neck virtually, like waiting to like ping them on what they're doing bad. But it's like, is that how you actually give people feedback when you're doing a ride along? It's like, no, you're not just pestering them the whole time. You're focusing on often encouragement and broader strategic ways. It's like, you're not criticizing this one person, but you're realizing that there's a trend now of your folks like generally not asking for Google reviews, or generally being a little too soft when they get my spouse is at home. Like, I don't want to consider buying a whole new HVAC machine now. Like, come back in a few months. It's like, you can just push a little harder and then you can refocus your training. So this is not a big brother tool. This is a tool to have visibility for the first time into what's going on. And then what you do with the visibility is up to you. And what good managers, people who use this tech properly do, it's the same good management principles. You're encouraging a lot of carrot, a little bit of stick when necessary, and it's helping you make better decisions as a leader.
Just answer the phone is one of those phrases that's always easier said than done. I know it was hard for me in my business because the phone always rings while you're out in the field trying to get something done, or it's 8 p.m. and you're trying to get your kids to bed. Well, I have the solution for you. I'm extremely excited today to announce Quick Staffers, your go-to solution for building a high-performing, cost-effective customer service team. We are placing CSRs who have been pre-trained on proven home service SOPs and scripts, the same ones that Wilson and I use in our business. For a limited time, we're offering $500 off your initial placement costs for the first 10 signups. See link in the description below or head over to quickstaffers.com for more information. I mean, the carrot part is huge too, I think, is if I was in the field as a salesperson that had a commission structure, like I want that coaching. I want to know what I missed or what I'm doing bad or how I can get better, because like the guy who almost got fired to first in sales, right? If I'm able to increase my sales in a commission role, like, I mean, that's the holy grail. If somebody's giving me that coaching that I couldn't get before to really be the top tier talent and make great money. I mean, I always say in my business, I say to everyone, I want you guys to make $1 million a year on commission, right? Because that means that you've made a ton for the business and we're happy to pay you. But they always say, well, how do I get there? How do I get there? And this seems like an awesome tool to be able to utilize to say, hey, this is you know, we needed you to do this, or the software thinks that you messed up here, and if you pushed a little bit harder, it would have got you over the line. Does it have any kind of guardrails in there where like it'll ping me as the manager and say, hey, we got an objection, but we didn't push back against it? Or like talk a little bit about actually how the software works to guide, I guess, managers into knowing what the people are doing.
Yeah. So looking at it from a manager point of view, you've got your, like, we call it the ride along replacement. It's like, how can I conversation by conversation hear what happened, but do this virtual ride along, we'll call it, in like 2 minutes. It's like, how can I look at this 3-hour long conversation and just get the gist of it really quick? And that's one use case. And how that'll be powered is, well, industry to industry, we have certain prompts configured, and we'll see right at the top of the conversation, hey, here's broad strokes what happened. Here are the products and services that were offered. Here's what the technician or the rep did like really, really well. So you have something so we encourage you as a leader to constantly be praising people for doing the right things, reinforce the right actions. Sometimes we can also call out what they did poorly, and also other things that you might highlight on a case-by-case basis. If there's like specific things you're looking for, hey, we have an initiative to drive like our Google reviews. So like I want you to grade 1 to 5 how well this person's doing their Google reviews. So you can get that kind of stuff. That's the micro level coaching. Do ride-alongs in 3 minutes, otherwise when it takes you hours. And then there's the macro, the strategic. Now you're looking at dashboards. You're looking at numbers. You are seeing what are some of the things you might do. One of the big pieces is process adherence. Is one of the hot topics people care about. It's okay. We're bringing on these new technicians, or we just tweaked our process. Are people doing it? So you can ask your frontline management. You can ask for some folks in the field, but you're just getting skewed anecdotal feedback. Now you can look at a dashboard and say, it's like, yeah, people are like 95% of the time asking if their park job's okay. People are 95% of the time like hitting the company story to build that trust early on. People are, so you get that process adherence up front. And there's a few other like common use cases that managers that we built Zero for to enable at the kind of the macro level.
It's very interesting that you look at it from a micro macro. That's really neat. I'm trying to think, like, what processes have we put in place that we just assume are working, but really, know, the dashboard pings and it's like 15% adherence.
We use the analogy that it's sometimes implementing Zero, and I don't even know if it's good for me to say this, or this type of tech. It's kind of like walking into your basement with a flashlight. It's like, oh boy, I didn't realize it was that messy down there.
Yeah.
But it's sort of like a necessary thing to start making the improvements. It's like before it was impossible to ever see that thing or have this visibility. Now it's possible. And it's like, are you brave enough to go in the basement and turn on the flashlight and see what's going on?
No, the answer, no, I don't. No, I'm just kidding. That's really awesome. So, okay. You guys have this incredible software, runs on the back of ServiceTitan. Is that correct?
Yeah. So we have ServiceTitan is a product called Sales Pro, which is powered by Xero. So it's sort of our product under the hood. And that's really what we sell to all ServiceTitan customers. It's got a really tight integration, so it works quite smoothly. But then we also, for folks who are not on ServiceTitan, this is primarily our folks in other industries like the pest control industries and the home improvement industries, used Xero proper.
Okay, so it's actually the Sales Pro. It's what's under the hood of Sales Pro. That's neat. So moving forward, right, looking into the future, because as we talked about a year and a half ago, that was the shift, really. John and I started the podcast about a year and a half ago. And I remember in January of 2024, March of 2024, we were talking about the first, ChatGPT that came out and how we're using it. And it was like, yeah, we use it to like rewrite some emails and send out some mailers and just really basic stuff. And now like going into 2025, it's absolutely changed the fabric of how we do business across the board, with a big portion of that being coaching. What do you see as kind of either a roadmap over the next year or upcoming developments for Xero in the next, I would say even just a year?
Yeah.
Because I don't think we can't, I have trouble viewing AI over, 3 years. So just the next year.
When we founded the company in 2020 as well, like this tech wasn't around. So we had the dream of creating an AI sales coach. And it's like, yeah, maybe in 10, 20 years, we'll do that. At first, it's going to be like more basic, virtual ride-along kind of stuff.
Yeah.
One day we'll get there. Then LLMs came out and we're like, oh, we're going to do that this year now. And it's like, what's next? Like the whole roadmap came way up.
Yeah.
To first ask you a question, then I want to hear your answer first. What are you most excited about if you let your imagination run wild on this type of tech and data when they're combined?
I mean, what I'm most excited about is, I've really loved kind of this avenue that you're in right now, is this coaching avenue. That's been amazing. Like hands down, CSR coaching, field staff coaching, sales coaching, that's been wonderful. I think for me personally, I'm very, very excited about the day where I can ask an LLM like, hey, like go find this data in ServiceTitan for me. I don't even want to pull and export. I just want you to find it. Like, hey, what's my gross profit this month? And then boom. And so I was talking to some people who are in this field, and they said, hey, Jack, you're actually farther away than you think, just because, right, there's no parameters on that. It's just so broad, and we can't give you that data until we're sure that data is good, right? Because if it starts spitting out bad data to you or it doesn't understand, then you're in a world of hurt, because you're thinking that, hey, your gross profit's 60%, but it's really like 30. So, but the day that I can kind of remove that, I guess the factor of like, okay, let me export my books, let me export my labor, let me export my, material costs, and then ask it, like I can do that now, I think. But the day where I don't have to do all those moves and I can just say, hey, where is it? What is it?
Oh,
and
yeah.
then, like a chat bot that just knows my entire business life and all my data in one spot.
You had like an analyst army just like ready
exactly.
to yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah. So I share your optimism for the future. I think we have this mountain of data, right, that we now have access to. What are we going to like? And this tech, these large language models that are really good at processing that data, as well as the rest of your business data. Okay, what do we do with that? Well, our first use case that we built at Xero was coaching. How do you make people better at the craft of sales? How do you ensure that folks are following your process, ensure customer quality? And even when things like customer complaint comes in, like let's diagnose what happened, do a postmortem, a proper postmortem.
Yeah.
So that's the current stuff. What's coming? I can't get into too much detail, but we are just scratching the tip of the iceberg for what the use cases. A few things that I'll tease are
I'm excited.
One that we're working on now is it's really exciting is cross sell and rehash, we call it. So imagine you've got folks in the field all day long, and you have would you do any cross sell work now at your business?
Yeah, so we do plumbing to HVAC, HVAC to plumbing all the time.
Perfect. How good are people at saying like, oh yeah,
the worst?
Yeah,
it's one of our hardest things to drill in. Is like, hey, as you're walking around the house for plumbing, like take a look at their HVAC system. Just like glance at it, and then if it's old, hey, is anybody doing the maintenance on these things? I saw they were kind of dusty. Like, what's the deal? Would you be interested in having a HVAC guy come out there? Super easy, low lift, but it just doesn't happen. No one feels comfortable saying it.
Yeah. So piece number one, the process piece, like, hey, just you need to say this line. You need to at least ask. Like you can get that through this type of tech today, through Zero Today. And then there's this subsequent problem of like, someone they sort of gave like, it's like they expressed a little interest. Maybe there's an off comment that like it's like, they're working. Someone showing the back of their house. Here's the HVAC machine. Yeah, it's not working. It's getting real hot. Oh, yeah, wiring there. Yeah, these outlets are always like screwed up. I don't know. Like that line that was thrown out is gold, and the technician missed it. Why? Because they're focused on their job. Their ears, like they can't hear everything that's being said. And now that we have this data, we could surface to you these hot leads every time they're ready to go. And we just send it right to you. You give them a call up, and you just get a free lead that's hot and ready to go. That's a good one. One of the exciting ones coming.
Yeah, I could definitely see that because that happens more than I think technicians realize. As an owner who it really is focused on both of those, when I do have to run calls in the fields, you catch those. I catch them more often than not, but I know they happen and they slip through the cracks in the other instances. So that'll be a good one, especially if it's hot directly to kind of a different line versus going, because then on top of it, right, the tech wants to, I'm still have to fix this unit. I don't like, they're not taking the time to actually follow up and close that lead and get someone out there talking to dispatch and talking to, the CSR to line it all up. So to have it bypass the technician so that they can focus on what they're good at, fixing the unit. And then now you have this lead ready to go that you can follow up on or do whatever would be amazing. Yeah. I'm in. I'm a customer.
Yeah, that's that one we're really pumped about. And then there's how much do you spend on? Don't give me a number, but how much do you think about marketing? How much are you driving marketing campaigns, and how metrics driven do you think you are with your marketing?
We are moderately metric driven. We think about marketing a lot. I mean, we're definitely on the higher growth on a year over year than most HVAC companies, and I think that's because we focus on marketing and push marketing really hard, and like that's our main focus is getting into more houses, which is how we're grabbing market share and growing in a rough market. Yeah,
and then one follow-up question, and then I'll say something is how's your visibility into what your competitors are doing? How do your customers think about your competitors versus you? How do they think about your brand versus the brand down the street? Whether it's trust in the business, pricing, a new offering, how much are you aware of what's in customers' heads?
0%. I mean, so we're smaller. I know John thinks about it occasionally because like they do a lot of branding campaigns. They spend probably millions on it. We are so small that we focus on lead generation more than branding. So I would be really interested to actually know what people in the area think of our brand when they see, our truck roll by.
Yeah,
definitely.
It's now I'll say the other feature that I'm pretty excited about. This one's a little farther out. What if you? Well, I guess. Sorry. One more prompting question.
Yes.
Have you ever felt like you were getting undercut by a competitor? Where it's like, sales are just like you're just like sort of not making the sales you used to, and then it's like, oh, these guys are offering this deal. Oh, like now we're on our feet and we have to react to it. Does that ever happen?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. We will. Well, generally we'll go up against a competitor who we haven't gone up against in a long time, and we'll get a bid back, and they say, "Oh, you guys are way higher," and we're going, "What?" We're competitive against this guy, this guy, this guy, and this guy, and then someone comes in with a killer deal, and will undercut us.
Yeah, the future that I'm excited about is where you're constantly aware. Like, imagine you were just listening all day, every day, waiting for competitors to be mentioned. and exactly how they're being mentioned. Oh, them. Okay, they're pretty premium. Oh, these folks. Oh, they're constantly like lowering their quotes, and being able to get through this right away proactively, so you can make strategic decisions about marketing and positioning against competitors, and just reacting quickly, reacting on your toes versus things taking months to learn. That's where I think about one of the use cases of leveraging this mountain of data to drive your business owner level strategy. How's your brand being perceived by customers versus the other folks down the street? Customer as a marketing campaign, we should probably land one and counter position it immediately. These types of insights, that's just science fiction right now. There's no way you can have that kind of boots on the ground intelligence until you have access to this data. So that's another one I'm excited about.
That's exciting. And in terms of timeline, what do you like? Are we looking at like 3 years out, or are we looking at within the next kind of year-ish? Sub three. That's awesome. Yeah. Man, I love it. I think this is incredible, and this has to be an extremely fun place to build in. Are you enjoying?
Oh, I'm so lucky.
I feel like I could see the passion.
Well, it's cool because you start when I started the business, I knew the experience that Cutco gave me and how so many folks had such a bad experience. People telling me, oh, that's a pyramid scheme. Oh yeah, I worked at that company. It sucks. Mm-hmm. Like, you just didn't get the support. It's like, for me, it was honestly life-changing. And so many people get the opportunity to be in these jobs with really high earnings potential, high potential trajectories, if you're able to stick it out, get the support you need to get through it. And so being able to build a company that is like, every day we get another success story from someone whose life was changed. It's really fun. Yeah. So I'm a lucky guy. And it's fun to be building here.
And with that, I mean, like, I think you're the quintessential like entrepreneur. And we get once again, we're a very fortunate podcast to be in the space. We really love home services, but in general, like, if you were to give any kind of advice to an entrepreneur coming in who is just wanting to start a business or wanting to grow a newly started business, like, what is just some really general advice that they're looking at? I know that's a super broad question. I mean, I have mine for like home services. Like, here's my go-to. Don't do this, do this. Do you have any of those up your sleeve there?
Yeah, there's some really tactical ones based on your type of business.
Yeah, get rejected often and early, and then grow that muscle.
I think the two that I think are pretty universal, because I hear them from all sorts of gurus in different spaces. They ring true for me. One of them is, if you're starting from zero, like, set a time frame so that you don't give up. It's kind of like it's like training for like a race or something. It's like, if you're doing a really hard thing, you might just quit after a week or a month or once it gets hard. But if you commit mentally to 6 months, or I'm going to give the next 12 months, I planned out my financials. I know I can do it. I can avoid taking salary for that long, and just lock in. So you need to be able to lock in, plan, give yourself a certain amount of time, ensure you're financially able to dedicate that much time. And the second one is just face the rejection, like, over and over again, like live for the rejection. Like, it's going to happen. You have to seek it out.
What's your view on burning the ships? Right.
Burning the ships.
I'm a ship burner. So I burnt all my ships. Everything's tied to this business. And I don't think I would have stayed in it, even if I set a time frame, if I didn't burn the ships early on. Because my story is that everybody quit day one. I wasn't an HVAC tech. I had to be an HVAC tech, like this whole like nightmare of a story, but like the ships are already burned. What's your feeling on burning ships, getting into something like this?
Yeah, that's a good one. I think it can be helpful. I didn't have all the ships burned. Like, it's like, I left a cushy job and I could have, like, they would take me back. Like, I didn't have I could have like cussed someone out on the way out so they wouldn't hire me back. That would have burned the ships. But no, I had a safety net if I needed to. Maybe the way that I burned the ships was I just told everyone I was going to do this thing. Yeah. And so that I had like my social reputation, like, on the line. That's kind of locked me in. That in a peer group, I was in an accelerator, and it's like, hey, these 6 months, everyone's building a business. So I had, it's kind of like, you're running a race or whatever, and there's people around you. And so I wasn't you're alone building your business, but at least there were other people alone with me, which helped. So I think that's a third piece of advice I'll say is like get some buddies, get some founder friends. Like you have to have that circle of people around you to at least provide that emotional support that you're not totally alone.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. I say that one a lot is build a community. It's extremely important. I wouldn't be where I'm at today without it either. And, on the ship burning thing, I don't know if burning the ships is right either. I don't actually have a viewpoint on that. I was just curious as to yours because, it is what it is. Some people don't need to.
Yeah.
Awesome. Man, this has been a fun conversation. So where can people find out more about you and Ciro?
Siro.ai, Ciro.ai, and it sends you in. If you're on Service Titan, we've got a link to send you over to Sales Pro or just talk to your Service Titan folks. Otherwise, go to Ciro, click book a demo, and you'll get one of our friendly folks on the phone.
What about you, Jake? If they want to find you, are you on social media? Are you becoming your own guru influencer? Where are you at?
Not yet. My influencer journey is maybe hasn't done yet. But you can find me on LinkedIn, and I do see my LinkedIn DMs. So it's Jake Cronin and CEO at Ciro. So you can't miss.
Awesome. Well, Ciro sounds like an awesome product. I mean, you're tracking all of your technicians and all of your salespeople in the field. You're getting great data back from them. You're using that on a micro and macro level to coach. I mean, it sounds like some really cool things are coming down the pike with you as well. And I'm really excited to see where we are in a year. We're going to bring you back on and I'm going to ask you the same questions.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Start collecting your data because there's so much that you can do with it. If you're not recording now, you should start recording.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you for coming on today and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me.